Okay, cool. Connecting to cloud server.
Okay, I've hit go
Awesome. Cool. So y'all might see me on here, but I'm actually just going to make sure this is live so I can share it to my own page.
live. Cool, give it a
Oh,
couple of seconds, it takes a little moment.
perfect. Okay, awesome. So it's live. So 1 second, I'm just going to share. All right. So guys, what is going on? My name is Marian Morrison, and I'm so excited to be here in this space with you with the whole juggling parenting and passions thing. Obviously, this is one of my biggest passions in my entire life, is talking about parenting because I am a parent first and foremost. I have got 3 kids at home. I think people that tune on, if you tune on, you probably will know me, but um, I have been on this like awesome journey of parenting and also juggling everything on the side that I do as well, which I would call my passions because it's something that I absolutely love to do. So during this course, it's kind of going to be like 3 hour segments. And during those segments, I'm here as a coach to first and foremost, not tell you what to do, but more importantly, to kind of ask you some deep questions to help you kind of get inside your own truth, to kind of understand where you're at and what life looks like, to explore balancing home life and your passions, and kind of looking where you're at and asking yourself, truly, is that where you want to be? So I think it's really important that we come in this space together and, one, bring our truth, two, be super open to explore anything that comes up for you, because it might not even be around parenting that things come up for you. It might be around just other things in general in life. And I think that is the whole purpose of this, is everything that I share with you, it's not only for the parenting journey, it is just for your own life journey. And if you're in, can you guys hear my dog barking? I think I heard him barking. But if you're in this parenting journey, you know, first and foremost, that life is different. Life is not the same as if you had no kids. And I think that's really important, because being part of a SRG, when I worked at Weevolution, I found so many self-reliant group members having kids and having to find the energy to balance being part of a group, being part of a collective group, where there was more than one kid, and making that work was something incredibly powerful that I got to witness when I was working. So now what I do is I work alongside organizations, corporations. I run a lot of parenting workshops for different people. And the most beautiful thing is that I get to bring my own truth to our calls, to our classes. And, you know, I'm in the arena with you, getting my butt kicked every day by these kids. But I have found really creative ways on how to balance my life. And those are the things that I'm going to bring and share with you. So I'm just going to share my screen so you guys can kind of see what is coming up for me and what we're going to be talking about today. And it's kind of one of those big things around juggling parenting and passions, which I've said 100 times. However, today during the session, what we're going to be doing is covering 3 topics. We are going to be covering our reality check. So we're going to be giving ourselves a reality check about what is going on for us. We are also going to be bringing our truth. And for that part, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be my favorite part. And then the next part is going to be us looking at our home life and where are we in our home life? Where do we feel like we need to realign? So that is how we're going to use our time. I do have some requests for you if you're going to watch this, especially if you're watching from the beginning now, or if you just pop on, and that is to just kind of come with an open mind. I think it's really important when we come into joining things that, you know, one, we might feel like, it might be a little bit defensive. However, one, we might be like, oh my gosh, I'm taking from this. Or we might be like, dude, I don't even have time to watch this right now. But those are just different things. And I'm just asking you to come with an open mind and a mind of exploring possibilities of your life when you are dealing with your children and also dealing with your passions. Now, if I can take myself back to even before I worked at Weevolution, I was in a self-reliant group, and I remember meeting with, Noah and Eleanor, and they were telling me all about it. I'm like, this sounds amazing. And at that time, I was a mom who I taught parenting classes on the side. I ran a lot of Facebook groups. So I was pretty social as far as like interacting with other people. But there was something in my core that wasn't sitting right. And that thing for me was I wasn't living to my fullest potential. I was really wanting to grow, but I didn't know how, like, to take myself to the next level. And I just kind of started like vibing with Weevolution and listening to their concepts. And I can remember I had went to Africa, ironically, like before I got involved with Weevolution, but in Africa, I saw all these women and they were coming together and they were making stuff and they were selling stuff and they were getting money for their families. And I'll never forget seeing them and just instantly feeling so empowered to do something. And when I say do something, I kind of just mean anything other than sitting at home with my children. So kind of like getting the Weevolution vibe and understanding what was going on, I had these light bulbs of like, what are all these other women doing? Surely there's a lot of other women just like me that would love to come together and kind of share skills and, you know, share ideas and explore leadership in different ways. And, you know, we can make stuff, we can sell it, all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, I wanted to feel like I was part of something. And because I had the kids, I had to find ways on how to flex and adapt. So that was really the start of it. And then when I got to talking to other women, I found it really interesting that a lot of women were just like me as well. And if you're watching this, especially if you're watching on Facebook, like give me some hearts or put one in the comments because I would love to know what that's like for you. Like, how awesome does it feel to be part of something when you know that you have potential to do more? And when we actually look and we slow down and we take ourselves to those places, I think in life, the biggest thing is none of us ever want to feel alone. So for me, that was one of the biggest parts. And that light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, Marion, you're definitely not tapping into your potential. This is a way forward. And when I was kind of talking to Eleanor, even about this series and Heather, I was just really curious to think, okay, how would this benefit women or men if they were looking to be part of a SRG, self-reliant group, and they weren't sure about what their passions were, or they weren't sure how to move forward? And for me, this is what this is all about. So as I said, in this session today, we're going to look at your reality. We're going to look at bringing your truth. We're going to look at how do we realign in our home lives and in our personal lives. In the next session, which is a week from today, we're going to be looking at how do we overcome obstacles? How do we kind of like hold our power regardless of what is going on externally? Oh, we're going to be covering parent guilt, you guys. This is going to be a big one. And then we'll also be looking at ways to manage our stress. And then week 3, it's about committing to this new life that we want and that we create and leading by example. I'm doing a parenting course right now called Parents Take the Lead. It is so powerful. And these are tips and tools that I'm going to be bringing to you guys. All right, so let's jump in. I just want to say a special hi to Karen. I see you. Christine, I see you as well. Thank you so much for coming on, you guys. So if we kind of look, I'm going to go to the next slide here and show you a reality check. So if you're at home, just sit, get a cup of tea, listen to this. If you want to do some work, get a notebook and a pen, and you will have time. This will be recorded, so you'll be able to watch it later as well. But grab a little pen, grab a notebook. I always have a notebook with me wherever I go. And I want us to look at our reality right now. The reason I want us to look at our reality is because as parents, sometimes we don't even have time to explore what our reality is. Sometimes we're so caught up in looking at like what happened last week or yesterday or even this morning. I mean, it's 1 o'clock and like some of us might be still drained from like getting the kids ready for school this morning. Or we might be thinking ahead of like tonight, what are we going to have for dinner? Or like, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing at the weekend? What are we doing during lockdown? Right? We're ahead. So I want us to give our reality check of right now today. And kind of to get us in the zone of like questioning what our reality is, I'm just going to do a small exercise with you. And I want you to feel it and engage it. And what I want you to do is I want you to imagine a snow globe. Like I know like Five Mummies make, like a lot of the girls love snow globes because they're so into Christmas. So like if you can imagine a snow globe, like the glass ball, and inside it's probably got like a little cute penguin or a snowman or Santa Claus or something like that. And you shake it up and like snow goes everywhere. That's what I want you to imagine. And imagine your life. Imagine that you now are standing in that snow globe. And when you're like driving and it's snowing and you can't see, and it's like, it's like a blizzard, you're like, the windscreen wipers are going so fast, but you can't see anything, right? I want you to imagine in that snow globe, we are taking everything that is going on in your life, whatever that is, from your finances to your parenting, to the way you were parented, to your childhood, to your expectations, to your worries, to your thoughts, and we shake it up. And there's like snow everywhere around you. You can't see anything. Everything. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I can't see. I'm stressed out. You're like trying to rub so you can see because it's like totally not clear. And you're like walking around trying to get out of here. What I want to invite you right now is just to slow down. And what happens when you slow down? All those snowflakes start to settle. All the stuff in your life that is going on right now, I just want you to kind of like let it settle. And slowly but surely, you're going to start to see through that glass. You can see out. What are you seeing? What is coming up for you? Whatever that thing that is coming up for you, I kind of want you to write it down, because I want you to let it be there and I want to acknowledge it. So you're in the snow globe, you're chilled, you can clearly see, and something's coming up for you. Whatever that thing is, like I said, write it down, and I want you to honor it. You see it. I don't want you to give it any thought. I don't want you to bring any shame to it. I don't want you to bring any energy to it. I just want you to see it, whatever that thing is for you. Because when we look at juggling our lives as parents, sometimes we don't give ourselves time to even slow down to see that. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed with laundry piles, like the one in the picture, or we're so overwhelmed with like just everything that's going on that we just can't see. So when you're at home and life is chaotic, which chaos is a good thing, but a little bit too much gets us really stressed, I just want you to slow down. And I want you to remember that snow globe visualization. And I want you to think about just being really present, because the more you worry about the past, or the more that you worry about the future, that snow is just going to continue to just come up and you will not be able to see clearly. Your quality level of thinking is going to just be low, and you will not be able to make good decisions for yourself. So when we look at exploring our reality, right, the thing that was coming up for you, that is there. I also want us to explore our reality of what our life is. And this is where I really want to call you into kind of really being specific with what's going on in your worlds. Let's look at your time, for example. Let's look at the time that, the time that you're spending every day. Because so many of us say that we don't have enough time in the day, but in reality, all of us have 24 hours. That never changes. Our schedules change, things happen, the kids get sick, or like, you have to work late, or who knows, everything happens all the time. It's something that we really are just like all at the same time, but the way that we use it is just completely different. And when we really look at the reality check of how we're using our time, what comes up for you? I'm really curious. And like, please, like, even give me some hearts right now if you're like, sometimes you think I could be more productive with my time. And really being honest with yourself about like what fulfills you, what makes you happy, what are your priorities? I want you to think about your priorities. I want you to kind of right now think about what is your top 3 to 5 priorities. I don't want to ask you anymore because that's too many. Like, what are the 3 to 5 things that every single day it's a priority for you? What are those things? Feel free to write them in the comments or write them in your notebook. But think about your priorities. And then I want you to think about your time. I want you to think about, Is it a time waster? Like there's a lot of things that we waste our time on. And I'll call out a few and feel free to put any in the comments if you want, but how many of you guys scroll through social media? Like a lot, like more than you want to. How many of you sit and watch Netflix? And I don't mean like watching Netflix like to chill because you've been sick and you're having a bad day, but I mean like maybe like you're watching Netflix because you're buffering because you don't want to go do the dishes. Or, you know, what about how many of you guys spend a lot of time worrying about things? Like I worry a lot about some things and I have to have this reality check of like, okay, is that a waste of my time? Is it going to help any situation, or is it just a time waster? Think about everything. So like, you know, how much time do you spend people pleasing? These are things that might not serve us and it just wastes time. So I want us to really think about the way that we spend our energy, the way that we spend our time. Is it a time waster or is it a time worker? Is that time working for us? So things that are time working for us, let's look at, for example, you know, prepping the uniforms for school, or making sure that we have the groceries for the whole week, or um, making sure that when we sit down, we're like being as productive as we can be with giving ourselves a little bit of grace in the moment. These are really, really important things when we can start to question, how are we spending our time? And here's some small tips when we're looking at our time is that you can track your time. Like I always, if I work with clients one-on-one, I have them track their time. And I mean, everything that they do in one day. And it takes a lot of energy to track your time for one day, let me tell you. But when you can start to like literally write down like, oh my gosh, I just spent 10 minutes, like, you know, sitting on the toilet, scrolling on my phone, and I wasn't even going to the toilet. Or I, you know, I scroll through social media and at 20 minutes past, I didn't realize it. Or I sat here and thought about actually getting up to put the laundry away for 30 minutes and I never even put it away, but that 30 minutes was that thinking time. You will be so surprised when you can see that written down, how much energy and effort that you've actually excluded from your brain and you haven't done anything. And you literally might be like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. But the question that I ask my clients is that time honoring your priorities? Is that time a reflection of what you say your priorities are? And if it's not, what would it look like if it was? Because as parents, juggling parenting and our passions, juggling, you know, if you're part of a group, like when, you know, do you have enough time to meet this week? Or do you have enough time to do your craft? Or do you have enough time to do your skill or go to work or whatever that is? How is that aligning with your priorities? And how are you just having that reality check of, you know what, this is matching. This is great. I'm proud of myself. I'm balancing this. Or just saying, actually, that's not the way that I want to show up. Because that is a magic gift, guys, when you can actually sit down and really like genuinely look at yourself and go, okay, I'm off balance and this is not how I want to be spending my time. This is not who I want to be. I'm going to call my truth. And I think there's a lot of magic in that when we can fully like just honor what we say our priorities are versus what our time is telling us. And if we track it for a day, that way, you know, we track that information. We don't even have to think about it. We just go, oh my gosh, that was time worrying, that was time buffering, that was time thinking, that was time, you know, whatever that was for you. I think it's really important that you decide what you want to commit to and that you actually fulfill that as being truthful to yourself. Also, let's look at, you know, commitments. Let's look at like a little bit of like being in control of our time. So saying yes and saying no. And I want to give you guys permission, even though you totally don't need my permission, but I want you to think about giving yourself permission to say yes and to say no. This is really, really, really important, especially when you're part of a community group or you're part of, you know, something that is more than you. I think it's really important that you honor your time in the sense of feel free to say yes to going out for coffee with your friends. If that's aligning with you, but you know, only if it's aligning with you. Feel free to say no to overcommitting to things. Feel free to say no when it's like you're creating boundaries for yourself. Saying no is a very powerful thing. Like the power in the word no, really helps honor the boundaries that you set for yourself. So I want to invite you to think about, what would your life look like if you felt like you had permission to say yes and to say no without any explanation? I think that is the key thing here, guys. You don't need to give an explanation when people say, can you do this? You can say no. You don't have to say no because I have to clean my house or because I have to do this. Like, it can just be no. So if you're looking for ways on, you know, what would a like a lot of people don't have confidence to say no or yes. So I just want you to play with that. I want you to get a little bit uncomfortable, because if you're uncomfortable, it just means you're growing. And that is an awesome thing. So I just want to say hey to Fiona, to Amanda, to Karen, Denise. Thank you so much for coming on, guys. I really appreciate it. So what does it look like to practice our time management? What does it look like to kind of be in control of that? Because if we looked at our current situation, our reality, we might think, there's something going on here, and like it just doesn't feel balanced in my life. So what I want us to do is, every week we can kind of get like this global overview of our time. And the way that I do that is like, every week I will look at my following week and kind of see what I have on. So for example, if you're a parent and you're in a group, you can look at your schedule and be like that. Okay, so next week I know my kids have these hospital appointments. I know my group meets on this day, or I know my kids have, school run, that kind of thing. You know what's happening, or you need to order a prescription. I'm just telling you things that come up for me all the time. Or you need to go to a training because Fiona, I see here, you're on here. So if you have to go to like Freddie's pump training, you know that you have these priorities and commitments. That way, when you go to manage your time, you can say, my time's allocated here, and this is when I'm going to have free time. So I can say yes, or this is when I have to say no because I already have commitments. And there's a lot of freedom with unreleasing stress in your brain, because you know and you can see directly what's in front of you. You don't have to think about it. You can just look at your diary and make a decision, yes or no. And it can also really help keep you accountable with your priorities, which I think are such a key when we're moving on to being part of a groups, because, being part of a group, you're holding your own power in how you show up. And we want you to show up. Everybody wants you to show up if you're part of a group, so that you are showing up as your best, because why settle for less than the best? We want you to be bringing your full potential. So that is one of the things, a global overview of your diary management, your calendar. And if you're at home, most of you guys have a phone, use your phone calendar, get things put in, or use a laptop, whatever it is, just make sure that you're allocating all the time that you require to be somewhere else or to give people your space. And here's the other thing. Please make sure that you put white space. I call it white space. White space is when you put white space in your diary, which means you're giving yourself permission to do whatever you want, whatever serves you. That is what you're going to put in that space, whether that's getting a cup of tea or, or a cup of coffee, whatever, sitting watching TV or going outside or reading a book, or, whatever that is for you. That white space is up for you. And even on the weekends, I put like 4-hour chunks of white space so that I don't have to have plans. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed with having plans that we're just get exhausted. So I think it's really important for you to make sure you have white space, and make sure that you honor that by saying, hey, this is my life, this is my choice, this is what I'm going to do. And if you're a parent and you have white space in your thing, in your diary, it's always an awesome idea to say to the kids, like, hey, what do you guys want to do? Let's do something fun together. And, or even like creating a white space for each of your kids so that they can choose a project. Because there's nothing more beautiful than, as parents, a lot of us entertain our children, and a lot of us are, always looking for stuff for them to do. Like a lot of parents might have them in 100 clubs after school, or like, doing all these things, and our kids forget how to be creative. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things that I saw with Weevolution, for example, is that there was so much creativity happening at home, as far as like all these new entrepreneurs. Like, gosh, the amount of stuff that I saw women making was insane. Like, I just was like so excited every time somebody would come in with a new product. But the awesome thing was, the children are seeing you be creators and be creative. And what happens when you are being creative is that you're so focused on a product that you're feeling proud of yourself. you're not caught up in your thoughts, and it just really allows for communication. It allows for confidence building because you're like, wow, I did that. That's crazy. Or, you know, when you get to share with people, you get the collective rapport building. Yeah, there's just so many awesome things. So like with that white space, allow your kids to help with the creative planning of, or not planning, but the creative impulsiveness on what is going to make that an awesome space for you guys. The other thing was also, I wanted to invite you guys to think about like eating the frog first. And what I mean by that is like, give me a heart or one in the comments if you know what that means. So like in the morning when you wake up or the night before, have a think about what is the thing that you really want to achieve that day? What is the one thing that you really want to make sure that you get done? So for me, for example, I had to collect my 10-year-old's prescription, and like it was kept going on in my head. I knew I was wasting a lot of time thinking about it. So like I put it in my diary to do first thing this morning. And I did that. So whatever is the most important thing for you to tackle, or even the hardest thing for you to tackle, I suggest you look at your diary and think, where do I have enough thinking space or time to get this done? And I want you to make sure that you get that thing done, because it'll take a lot of pressure and worry and stress off of you so that you can do that through the day. So eat the frog first, get it done. I usually like to do mine first thing in the morning, so it's out of the way. However, some people work best at night. Whatever that is for you, just make sure that you get that done. What else here have I got for that? Also, you know, just again, honor your space and time. Look at the roles that you play in your life. So if you're a mom, you know, if you're wife, parent, friend, aunt, daughter, whatever that is, and just look at thinking, are you fulfilling the role the way that you want to during the week? And if not, maybe it's just time to revise and to reflect on how you can make that a priority for your life. All right, we'll go on to the next slide here. All right, so this is one of my favorite parts here. This is all about bringing your truth. You'll see the slide in just a second, but bringing your truth is one of the things that lights me up. So I do a lot of like personal development coaching. Like I would love to know your thoughts right now, even when I say bring your truth, what does that mean for you? Especially when it comes to like, you know, parenting, and when we did the reality check of where we were and looked at our time and how we're spending our time, and, you know, bringing your truth is the pivotal moment for you to be like that. Actually, this is where I am, and this is how I am, and these are the things that are going on. So I have some questions for you around bringing your truth that I think will really help you get into this mind frame of just looking at things and thinking about, okay, what is my truth? And I'll share with you kind of like the power of sharing your truth to yourself is just so freeing, in my opinion. Every single person in the world like has an opportunity to be really authentic to themselves. But what happens is we start to put on these masks, and behind the masks usually is a lot of hurt or shame or guilt or feeling not good enough, feeling like you'll never get there, or, you know, feeling like your education isn't good enough. Maybe you come from a place where you feel judged. There's so many things. So I want you to think about that. Number one, I want you to think about like, what are beliefs that you have about yourself? And again, feel free to share those in the comments, or feel free to write those down on your notebook. If you're watching on the replay, just write those in your notebook, because I would love for you to kind of do this work. It's really important. So what are some truths that you, or some beliefs that you believe to have, that you want to bring true to yourself? So for a long time, you know, I kind of thought that I was running my own business, and I thought, I don't think I can do this. Actually, it's really, really hard. Like I started to kind of like look inward and think, oh my gosh, I'm not making as much money as I thought I was going to be. And, you know, my house is really dirty, and things are chaotic, and it seems impossible. And it just kind of like put this big hole. Like I was just like, oh man, I felt like this barrier was in front of me and I just couldn't get over it. And like sometimes I still feel like that. But I want you to think about things that like is like that for you. Um, what are the things even that you think about in your life that you really want that you feel like you cannot have? Think about those things. And here's a question as well, that I want you to think about is, what are you holding? Like, I talk a lot about armor. Like, when people are like fighting, like back in the days, they wore this big shield of armor, like so nobody could hurt them. And I want you to think about your armor, and I want you to think about what are those things. And also, I want you to think about your parenting in that retrospect as well. Like, what armor are your kids holding? Because when we can start to look at these things and identify them, and I want to also invite you to do this without bringing yourself to a place of shame. So just call it out, but like you don't have to attach a feeling or an emotion to it. We're just identifying. That's what we're doing. And when I do this with my clients, I literally give them post-it notes and I'm like that, okay, guys, we're going to do a big brain dump right now. I want you to write down everything on your armor. And if you can imagine, we'll take a kid, for example. If there's a kid and a kid goes to school, so like my first job was teaching, and one of my kids walked in and they just looked heavy. Like they just looked like they're like drained, they're exhausted. And they sat down and they didn't smile, they didn't look up. I'd be like literally, I would be thinking, um, yeah, Karen said, explain more about armor. Yeah, so I'm going to do that right now. Good question. I'm going to explain what I see in this kid. So I see this kid looking like something's going on, and for a long time, so sorry, I'll go back to the kid. So the kid, for example, I want every kid that walks into my classroom to be able to hang up their armor on a coat rack or something like that, because I don't want them wearing armor when they're in my class, because then I fully don't have this child. They're holding all the barriers and the burdens of home life in school. So let's look at our own armor. What does that look like? So Karen, let me know as well, like put a 1 in the comments when you're starting to really get this. So like, let's take our lives, for example. Now, I'm going to talk about the buildup of armor. So for example, whenever for example, we grow up as little girls and we have got a really hard life. There could be things that happen to us that we had no control over. We could live in a house where there's like not a lot of gas and electricity. And like, trust me, I know that so many families are experiencing this, and you're freezing and like you get a cold and you go to school and they're like, why do you have a cold? But you can't say like, my family has no money for the gas and electricity. So you start to build this armor. It's like callousing our true selves because we want to show up as another person. And it's really powerful, by the way, when we can strip back this armor to really fully see who we are, because we are constantly putting on armor because we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect ourselves from the true feelings of what is really going on in our world. So that's from like a kid point of view. Let's go to like a teenage point of view. You could, have a place of kids have a lot of armor around like being bullied. They get bullied, or say they're diagnosed with something and they just have all this shame within them. They start to put on armor, right? And when they put on the armor, they just start feeling heavier. They start feeling like they're judged. They start feeling like, they're behind something. It's like something. So there's a couple of things. It could be like an emotional barrier, so we're not letting anybody in, or it could be yeah, just like walls, absolutely. Like walls, but like we carry this armor around with us. So like, yeah, you could carry a wall around with you. But like you carry this armor everywhere you go because you feel like you don't have permission to take it off. You feel like you will be so judged, or like you will be in such a place of shame or vulnerability that you're just like, dude, I can't let myself go there. It's going to hurt too bad. And when we start to strip back this armor and like kind of like reveal the true self, like magical things happen, especially when we actually start to show our children that we are able to take this armor off. We are giving them permission to take their armor off. So what does it look like to take your armor off at home? So for example, let's say we're sitting in the living room and like, we're sitting in the living room, like a lot of families don't do that. And I know that because I'm saying my kids are usually upstairs on their devices or something like that, and I have to call them down to have a conversation. So I'll use, for example, my dad passed away to COVID in March. And I'm not kidding you, I was broken and like I'm still probably a little bit I am broken still, but I'm working on it. So this is me actually helping my armor during this conversation. So I remember one day sitting in the living room and I remember one of my kids like walked past and like I was crying because I felt so much hurt. And one of the kids was walking past and like I was crying and I didn't want them to see me. So like I pretend I was sleeping. And they're like looking at me and like they know I'm crying, but they're like too afraid to ask. Um, and I remember like reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. Um, I will I will send some YouTube links for you guys to watch kind of more about this armor thing. But when when they left the room, I felt really dishonest with myself, but also I felt a little bit cowardly, if I'm honest. And I remember calling them back downstairs and I had them sit down and I said, hey, I want to share with you that I'm really struggling right now. And I want to share with you that like mommy's really sad and I don't have the energy to play. I don't have the energy to go work. And I also said, like, I said practical things. So, like, I have a 15-year-old, and I said to her, um, I'm trying to work and clean the house at the same time. And I'm really, like, really sad about Granda dying. And I remember her, like, breaking down crying. And my son started crying as well. But, like, everybody started crying because I started crying and it was like, honestly, it was as somebody turned on this faucet that had been dripping because we knew it was there. We really knew and we could feel that it was there. But as soon as I opened that faucet by allowing myself to explore my emotions in front of my children, all their tears came pouring out. My kids hugged me so tight like they never had before. And I was truthful with them. I brought my truth that I was not coping well. And it was just a beautiful moment because like through all the hurt there was so much love. That love brought our family together, and you know what, we were able to juggle the house a lot better. I was able to juggle my work, the housework, because everybody helped. So when we look at our lives and we look at like things that are going on with our families, for example with our kids, the more that we bring our truth, the more that we're giving them permission to also bring their own truth, which I don't care what anybody says in life, that is the biggest thing. If we can have communication with our children, it is the most magical tool. Like I've got millions of books that say hundreds of different things, but like that is the one thing. Like as parents, our job is to communicate with our children. Our job is to love our children. Um, our job is to let our children figure stuff out by themselves and not give them all the answers either. But when it comes to sharing vulnerability within us and like us being true to ourselves, it is so awesome to be able to do that and explore that. But it can't happen until one thing happens. And that one thing is taking your armor off. You know what? And if you're not willing to take the armor off, you're just going to be stuck under this heaviness for a long time. And it makes juggling life so much harder. So even if you're not ready to take the armor off, I just want to one love and encourage you. Even just take one arm out. It doesn't have to be the whole thing right away. But please step into that place of just softness and like gentleness with your grit, because I know all the SRG members have grit. Keep your grit, keep your awesomeness, keep all the hard things that happened in everybody's lives. We always want to keep that because that helps define us. This is not about making life all full of freaking roses and flowers and sunshine. This is about looking at reality and exploring and sharing how we feel about life. And when it comes to the home environment, because we're going to dig deeper into a lot of these things, but like in this session, I'm really looking at like our home environment. Are we being true to who we are in our home environment? And if things feel heavy at home, it's not only affecting you, it's affecting your kids. Like conversation has to happen. but it has to start with you. It has to start with you bringing your truth. And kind of, I want you to even visualize right now what your life, let's look at your life a year from today, right? So the 5th of October, 2020. Let's look at the 5th of October, 2021. And let's just imagine how you want to be showing up in the year 2021 on October 5th. Now, I'm not talking about I don't care about where you're working or what you're doing or that kind of thing. I care about how you're showing up in you, how you're being, right? Not what you're doing, how you're being. So ways that we can do that is we can look at our own characteristics and traits. So even if you have paper, whatever, write down, what are the traits and characteristics that you like about yourself? What are those things? And dig deep as well, like give yourself permission to explore what that looks like. So, I love my personality. I love my grittiness in life. I love that, I've learned to love all these hard things that I've gone through because they've shaped who I am. I love that I'm super empathetic and compassionate. These are things that are not easy for a lot of people to write. But I'm going to give you a question that's a little bit more challenging. On the other side of the paper, I want you to look at what you don't like about yourself. What are the characteristics and the traits that make you feel uncomfortable about who you really are? And while you're doing this exercise, I just want to really honor you and invite you to bring your truth to that situation. Now, don't write them in the comments or, write them in your notebook. Keep these private for you. But I really want you to look at what is not sitting right with you about how you show up right now. Because once you can start to identify what these things are, it's a game changer. Let me just get some water. Give me some hearts in the comments if this is resonating with you or if you're getting anything from this. It's a hard one to look at what we don't like about ourselves because it's like we don't want to face that. And a lot of things like, I mean, gosh, I've been on this journey so long as being a woman in the community and being somebody that is constantly in a personal development. I'm constantly trying to grow, but I'm also constantly trying to challenge myself and like who I am, and honor who I am. And it's like, let's look at things like that are really practical when we look at what we don't like about ourselves. So I'm just going to be honest with y'all. Not that I don't like about myself, but I will share some things, but these are a lot of things that come up for a lot of people. One, body shaming, constantly saying, I'm going to start a diet on Monday. Oh, I'll start the next day. Oh, I'm too fat for that. Oh, they would never hire me. I'm not smart enough for that. I don't know how to shut up in an argument. I don't know how to stop playing the victim in my life. It's everybody else's fault. Like, I hate when I blame people. I just don't have the energy or the motivation, and I can't seem to get up and just do things. I'm not happy with like how I'm parenting. I don't have boundaries for my kids. I don't, these are all things that can come up during these conversations, guys. I don't have a good relationship with my own parents. And I want to make amends, but I don't know how. Or maybe I'm in a group with some people and like we just clash or we don't communicate well. And I don't know how to express that without breaking or causing havoc, or I'm not doing my part in something where I know I should be trying harder. Or I don't manage my money very well. I don't know how, because I've tried and I always fail. These are things that can really crop up for a lot of us. And they start to put armor. We're holding all that armor. It's one of those things where if we can call it out, it loses power. But until we call it out, it's going to hold us. It's going to keep, the armor is going to be on there. But if you can be true to yourself and just start writing things, and whatever you write, here's the flip side. you're going to invite yourself to look at living 5% less hating yourself, 5%, less thinking that you're more smart than what you are. You're going to counterbalance whatever that thing is. So if you think you're a bad parent, you're going to 5% more intentionally do the work to become a better parent. Whatever that looks like for you. If you're not pulling your weight in your group, what does 5% more, input into your group look like? Everything has a counterbalance. Okay. So the next part we're going to look at is home life and realignment. So you'll see this slide coming up in a second. And this part here is one of my favorites. And this is what we'll spend the last part of this little section on, because this is a part for me, it's like, we did a reality check, we looked at our truth, and now we're going to look at our home life and like how we really want to realign in our life. What does realignment look like? And it is so powerful when we do this, and it can be lots of fun as well. So like, I really want to invite you to kind of think like, let me be true to myself right now and let me honor, because like the house that I live in, for example, this is where it all starts. So I remember when I was giving like an introduction to a group of girls, they were interested in like starting a self-reliant group. And like all of them were like that, oh, we can't meet at my house, it's too messy. Or we can't meet at my house, it's too small. Or there's all these things coming up. Or I have to leave the meeting early because I got to get a wash now and the kids will be home. And everything was around the house. And I always remember so much energy that went into, because we didn't have the hubs at the very beginning. So like we would go to people's houses and man, like it was so fun because it was like a house party. Like obviously you can't do that right now, y'all. But it was so interesting because the energy and the effort that people put into even cleaning their homes before people came over made them exhausted. And they weren't even able to be productive. And then they were thinking, are people judging my home? All these things. So I just want to softly touch on our home environment. And I wanted to invite you to think about a few things, okay? And again, I'm not telling you anything. I'm just giving you an invitation to think about what life would look like. So for myself, and this has been, now that my kids are a little bit older, it's a lot easier. But when they were little, I tell you, I worked so hard to try to keep my house clean, to try to do laundry, to, try to make sure I had food in for the week and that kind of thing. And I was just really, it was a lot. Like, put it this way, at the end of the night, I was so tired that I was just like, I didn't even care if I ate dinner. I'd be like, Lord, let me just freaking have a bag of crisps and whatever's in the cupboard, because I'm not cooking anything. And I'd be so tired from like all the things. So the more I touch on this time stuff from the very beginning of the call and prioritizing, I wish I would have done these things when my kids were so little. I do them now and life is a lot easier. So with my home, for example, my home is my safe space for me and my children. And to be able to say that is empowering and inspiring for me to even hear myself say that. And I want to hear you say it as well. My home provides safety and love and permission for my kids to authentically be who they are. I have to question myself all the time about what makes my house flow smoothly, because this gets off balance a lot, right? And I have to realign all the time, which means, for example, if I'm working, if I'm coaching 5 days a week, all day, then the nighttime is when I have time to clean up and prep. But if I'm tired, sometimes things don't get done, and that's okay. However, I've noticed that whenever my house is messy, or, if I haven't put laundry away in like 3, 4 days, that we start to feel out of line. And this is like, I mean, if y'all came in my house right now, it is not spotless. It's lived in, there's stuff everywhere. But I get my basics done, I get my priorities done. And this is no judgment for anybody else, but I just want to invite you to think about, what would your life look like if you invested 5% more into your beautiful home every day? Just 5%, right? What if you intentionally put in your diary, like for 20 minutes, to blast one area? Just start small, because it can be so overwhelming to do it at the very beginning. However, as parents, and if we're looking to juggle our passions and parenting, we have to make sure our home environment is a safe space for us to fully be who we are, to, you know, if we have energy to do stuff outside, but we don't have any energy to do stuff inside to make that environment where we live, where our children are, a really safe and like nurturing place, it's not going to be off balance. And that's sometimes what happens is that we give so much outside of our home that we don't have the energy to get it done inside. So I want you to really flip that a little bit. I want to invite you to flip that. I want you to think about, how do I make this space mine? How do I make this feel and align with who I am as an individual? Because once you can flip your energy and I don't want it to be, I need to do this. I want to invite you to think about what you want to do. Because I know if you're bringing your truth, I know that you want to have an environment where you're able to chill out at night and not stress because of the mess, or be able to get out your products or your crafts that you're making in an environment where you're not feeling overwhelmed and you can't find stuff, or making sure that you're getting the laundry put away so that life can feel a little bit easier. And trust me, I know this is not easy. Trust me. But also trust me, if you look at your time and you look at how much time you're wasting versus how much time that you're making your time work for you will be like, oh my goodness, I had so much time that I could have got that done and I didn't. And you'll start to beat yourself up. So instead of doing that, I want to really invite you to think about, what would it be 5% more of putting that energy and love into your home? So that's enough about the home environment, because y'all know, you get the point. And you know this as well. You know how good that feels when everything is done. Also, ask from support from your group members. Like, how do they clean their house? How do they, or does somebody want to come? Oh, you can't do it during COVID, but like, make yourself accountable. Like, send pictures. I have all my clients do this, by the way. Send me a picture of like everything that's crazy, and then send me an after picture. And the energy and that they are just like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. It helps them produce work more better. Their children get their homework done better. They spend more time together. They have more energy. They have more confidence if people come to the door. They feel more self-value and self-worth. So really dig deep into that whole thing about like, okay, this is my space and I want to make it something that feels beautiful for me and my family. Get the kids on board, have them do it too. And when you start to make those products, look around at your space and be like, wow, I am so thankful. And I am in a place of gratitude for my space. So I invite you to do that as well. Now, when we look at realignment, we look at, you can see in the slide, there's like, home and family, work and money, meeting friends, travels, rest, all these different things. So if you can imagine your life right now, and if I was doing this exercise with you in person, I would have you kind of just draw everything out on a piece of paper that's happening in your life. And I would start to kind of like have you number them from like 1 to 10 or like 1 to 20 on what is feeling like, what are you the most stressed about? And I want you to kind of put like a 1 next to that. What is the thing you're least stressed about? Put a 20 next to that, and then just work your way down so that you can see like where the stress is in your life. And then you can devote different amounts of attention to kind of addressing that thing, because it might not be your parenting, it might not be your groups, it might be money issues, it might be communication issues with a partner. There could be so many different things that you're off balance with. Um, it could be your eating. It could be like, are you drinking enough water? And I preach this all the time because I'm such a believer in it, and I really feel like everything that we eat, like getting fresh air, these are all things that really help us realign. So I'd love to know what helps you realign. What are some things that you feel like you can do to realign? But remember, the most important part of that is giving yourself space to think about where you need to realign, because the answer is easy. But it's about giving yourself enough space and honoring who you are, because you're so worth the energy to give, because it's all about you. as a leader in your home, you're the one that balances everything. You're the one that kind of, you set the standard for everything. Sometimes our kids are a reflection of how we are. I know you guys don't want to hear that sometimes, but it is the truth. Not all the time, but sometimes. So if your kids are chaotic, I want you to ask yourself, are you chaotic? These are really hard truths that sometimes we really need to face reality and be like, actually, you know what? I'm going to lead the way because I deserve it and so does my child. And it's a really exciting thing when you can start to be like that. Okay, I put my hand up. This is where I'm at. And these are the changes that I'm about to implement into my life. So again, I want to invite you to think about space and time so that you can look at where do you feel like you really need to realign. Everything starts with you. Wherever you're off balance, whether that's, going out for a 20-minute walk or going in your room and just getting all the laundry put away and making that bed, or showing up to your group full of enthusiasm because it rubs off on other people. We don't want to be bringing our negative energy, but we're going to cover that in the next section. But we want to be bringing our best version. And for our best version to happen, we need a reality check. We need to bring our truth, and we need to look at our home life and areas that we are ready to realign, do that work, commit, and then get into action to get stuff done. So that is my session for today. Thank you so much for everyone that joined in, and also thank you for allowing yourself the space and time to reflect on what does your armor look like? What are the traits that you don't like about yourself? Because we got to be cruel to be kind sometimes. And literally, whatever feels uncomfortable, lean into it. I want you to seek discomfort, because when you seek discomfort, you're growing. And in life, all of us have an obligation for ourselves to grow as human beings. We're all part of Weevolution because we want to grow. We're in this for one, the collective spirit of all these awesome people coming together to make a difference. Two, we have a belief that we really want to make change. We want to be entrepreneurs. We want to bring our product to the world. We want to provide for our families. It's such a key thing. We have an understanding of everybody in our communities, what they're doing. So therefore, we're a support for them. We're leading by example. We're leading by actions. And if you see other children, I want to invite you to think about, like, what could their life look like if you were to share the whole SRG movement with them? What would that look like for them? Would that be added benefit in their life? What are some experiences and boundaries that you've created for yourself during this movement that you're able to share so that people don't make mistakes that maybe you made? But also, are you giving yourself that opportunity to even dream bigger? Because that is probably why you're here, because you have it in you. You have that potential. And in life, there's going to be so many things that get thrown at us every single day. But with our invincible grit and our ability to not give up and never quit, we'll always win because we'll find a way. So guys, thank you so much again for your space and for your time. And if you have any questions at all, just feel free to message Weevolution and they will let me know. So have a great day, and I will see you back next Monday from 1 to 2. And again, in session 2, we're going to be covering how to overcome obstacles, how to hold our power, how to get rid of that parent guilt, and also some stress management techniques. All right, so you guys take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.